Imagine sitting on a cliff, overlooking a beautiful lake. It's dusk, but there's still plenty of light by which to see. There's a slight mist hanging over the light, which lends a eerie but magical quality to the scene. When out in the distance, you see a strange dark shape slowly emerging from the water. The serpentine-like head is only there for a moment before going back into the depths of the water. In its wake, you see a couple of dark humps before it's gone completely. As you sit there trembling, you start to wonder if you actually saw what you thought you saw. Were you imagining it? Or were we just one of the numerous but unbelieved observers to the mystery that is the Loch Ness Monster? Even though there have been countless documented sightings by reliable sources which should lend validity to her existence, the legend of the Loch Ness Monster is still not taken seriously by most scientists and skeptics. Because if she exists, then where did she come from? Now, Loch Ness is located in the northern part of Scotland, near the town of Inverness. It's one of the largest freshwater lakes in Great Britain. At its deepest, it's close to 1,000 feet. Now, I was born in Scotland, and I grew up on all the stories of Nessie, and I was completely convinced of her existence, even as a child. We went to Loch Ness and watched and looked, but we didn't see her that day. But the very first documented sighting was by St. Columba in 565 AD. He reported seeing a water beast in the River Ness. Since then, numerous sightings of a humpback creature living in the loch have been reported and documented. The monster has been called by many names over the years, and Highland legends talk about the Kelpie or the water horse, which is said to drown unwary travelers. The Loch Ness Monster was known just as the beast for many years, until a reporter named Alex Campbell wrote an article about the monster and gave her a name, Nessie. So even though an actual specimen, either living or dead, has never been produced, the fact that there have been so many eyewitness sightings and scientific sightings over hundreds of years proves the existence of the Loch Ness Monster. Now, nestled in the heart of the Scottish Highlands, Loch Ness is 24 miles long and 2 miles wide. On the west side of the loch, the ruins of Castle Urquhart look down on the lake. And it's from this vantage point that the great majority of the sightings have been located. Loch Ness is in an area called the Great Glen, which is believed to be close to 300 million years old. During an ice age, the entire highland area was covered with ice, and Loch Ness was part of the North Sea. When the land began to rise, Loch Ness was cut off from the sea, except for 5 miles on its northern end, to which the River Ness flows through. It is possible that a prehistoric sea herd got caught in a loch before it was closed off from the sea. And as the loch gradually went from salt water to fresh, the creatures could have adapted to the change in their environment and evolved, as we've seen other creatures do. Another unique feature of the loch is that its waters are black as a result of soft coal constantly being washed into the lake. This makes underwater photography next to impossible. Even though the water of the loch is a frigid 43 degrees, it never freezes. And the cold, slightly acidic waters of the loch could easily conceal the death of any monster living in it. Unlike warmer lakes, where the carcass fills with gas and rises to the surface, the acidic conditions caused by the peat makes the bacteria growth slow down. So instead of bloating and rising to the surface, the gas escapes and the body sinks to the depths. With the extreme depths and murky conditions of this lake, that explains why no bodies of the monsters have ever been found. And there's said to be large underwater caverns, and ledges that so far divers have been unable to explore, which would be excellent hiding places for a large creature. Now, the first documented sighting of the monster was by Irish poet and clergyman St. Columba in the year 565 AD. Columba set out for Scotland on a mission to introduce Christianity to a fierce warrior tribe called the Picts. He claimed that he saw a fierce water beast about to swallow the swimming warrior. Later, about 1400 years ago, an abbot named St. Adamnan wrote about the monster, calling it a water beast living in the river Ness. Now, one theory is that the Loch Ness monster is an evolved relative of the water-dwelling prehistoric Plesiosaurus, and Plesiosaurus bones have been discovered near Loch Ness, which is evidence that the monster could be a descendant. Locals in that region for decades had spoken of a beastie in the loch and warned children not to play among its banks. It was mostly kept a secret among the locals and not spoken about to outsiders until 1725, when a band of British soldiers were sent to the south bank to build a road. They heard a noise in the water and saw two creatures as big as whales swimming across the lake. There were about 50 other sightings in 1933, when a writer from the Inverness Courier named Alex Campbell wrote an article about a sighting by a local couple and publicly gave the monster her new name, which was Nessie. She was known as Nessie from then on. Another famous and reliable eyewitness was Father Gregory Busey, a monk at the Fort Augustus Abbey. He was walking along the monastery garden with another man from Westminster Cathedral when both men saw a head and neck about 6 feet in length. They reported that it moved through the waters before turning and submerging. Now, science got involved in the 60s, and the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau was formed. They organized teams using different methods to capture proof of Nessie's existence. They were eventually forced to shut down after about 10 years, but their efforts did produce film of an unidentified animal eating fish and an enormous school of salmon swimming away from a large animal. Another expedition in the 60s was led by British engineer Timothy Dinsdale. He led a 6-day watch in which he was able to produce film footage showing a large creature moving through the water at approximately 10 miles an hour. Now, the most recent documented sighting was on the 15th of June, 2011. While taking a break from working at the cafe that her and her husband own, Mrs. Jan Hargraves spotted something unusual on the loch. She called to her husband, and they both saw something quite a distance from where they were standing. It had a long neck, and she stated that the neck looked too long to be a seal, and it was black in appearance. It went underwater for 30 to 40 seconds, then came back up and was around for a good 4 to 5 minutes. So, in conclusion, given all the sightings from St. Columba to even now, with scientific equipment and photographs, it's hard to dismiss with all this evidence that there is something in Loch Ness. So even though an actual specimen, either living or dead, has never been produced, the fact that there have been so many irrefutable, reliable eyewitness sightings over the years should be enough to prove that there is indeed a monster of some sort living in Loch Ness.